Yeah, I got off to a weird start this morning. I woke up with a priapism too. A painful erection that won't go away. It's been a hard day. Long, hard day. I can do that joke because my wife's not here to tell you guys the truth. I would say it was an average hard day at best.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Front Row, presented by No Huntsville. I'm your host, Scott Eason. Thank you for joining us today. We have another fantastic guest here on Front Row. It is comedian and producer here in Huntsville, Mr. Brandon Ijames. Hello, Brandon. How you doing, man?
Hey, good. How about you?
Yeah. I'm great. It's tonight. It's snowing outside. So
it's a winter wonderland.
Yeah,
it all melts in about 3 hours.
3 hours, yeah. It's typical Alabama shit. It's 60 yesterday. Today it is below freezing and snowing. Tomorrow it's going to be 58. So I don't know. We need somewhere that has definite seasons. I don't think there's seasons in Alabama anymore. It's just
very finicky here.
Something's
Can't
happening.
make its mind up.
No, something's happening. There's something to that whole, climate deal they've been talking about. You know what I mean?
I don't buy it.
They were coming out strong immediately. We're like, oh yeah, fuck that. I don't believe in climate. Yeah, no. Well, Brandon, thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about Homegrown comedy, which you are a producer of. Homegrown has been happening in Huntsville for how many years? 6?
We just had our 7-year anniversary.
7?
Yeah,
Look at me. I don't even know. I just know I always reference it as to Epic Comedy Hour because Homegrown is basically kind of one of the sister shows of Epic and started, I think, it makes sense, about a year after Epic had begun. We both started at the Low Mill, and of course now you guys have moved on. How long have you been at Straight to Ale now?
I think a little over 2 years. At the 805 location. I guess probably around 2014 we moved to Straight to Ale, and they were at Lehman Ferry.
And now that Lehman Ferry location, after they moved, of course, to 805, now is that Fractal Brewing? Yeah. It's Fractal Brewing. Yeah, exactly. You know what? I messaged that guy. He didn't message me back. Fractal, if you're listening, message me back. What's up? Yeah. So I remember that location. I mean, I love the Airport Road location. The tap room there was great. But now, since you moved over to 805, when you were first there, you were in the gym, which had a very unique feel to it because the goal was always down. You did comedy right under the basketball goal.
Right over the stage, yeah.
So it looked like a game of 21 would break out at any time during somebody's set.
Oh, yeah. Everyone in the showcase had, slam dunk.
Of course, everybody you had to make a joke about the basketball goal. How could you not? But now, and for the last at least a year, if not more, you've been in the Speakeasy, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about how you got involved with Homegrown and what Homegrown's all about.
Getting fucking tired of my married friends, though. I'll tell you guys that right now. Tired of my married friends. Because they'll see the women I date, and they'll say to me, Chris, you can do better. First of all, Samantha, she's right here, and you just ruined this double date. I don't know why you said that out loud. Second, guys, here's what I would do if I could do better. Better. I would just do better.
Well, like you mentioned, Homegrown spun off from Epic Comedy Hour. It started about a year later. They were both at the Low Mill. Things didn't work out with the Flying Monkey after a couple of years, and we started scouting other locations, and that's when we checked out Straight to Ale. The show was initially founded by Huntsville comics Tom Hand and Thaddeus Blake. Tom moved to Washington State about after a year or so, and then Thaddeus brought me on to help, and early 2013, and the rest is history. I've been involved ever since then. Yeah, it's bounced around a couple times, and we found a nice, cozy spot in the Speakeasy at the Straight to Ale at Campus 805. It's a perfect room for comedy. It's got the dim lights and the jazzy vibe, a perfect stage.
It definitely does have the jazzy vibe. I mean, honestly, it'd be perfect to just be a full-time comedy club. To be honest,
it's perfect. Perfect layout. There's full service. There's a bar.
Yeah. So, Brandon, how long have you been doing comedy?
This coming February will be 8 years.
8 years in February. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. So tell me a little bit about what made you start comedy, and then I want to hear about your first time. Tell me about those things.
So I got into comedy. I went to UAH. I got an engineering degree. I was an engineer for 7 years, and knew I didn't want to do that as a full-time career, all the way through retirement. So I started brainstorming, like, what else could I do? Open a business or something. I considered, like, maybe opening a franchise or some kind of, like, geek store, bookstore. Bounced around different ideas. I started thinking about a comedy club. Like, all right, so to kind of dip my toe in the water to gauge the interest of what the demand for comedy could be like in Huntsville. I started searching for open mics and stuff, and right about
Just
that
like
time,
an engineer. Do you hear how analytical this is? A very analytical approach.
it's step
Just
by step.
tear it down from the inside.
So where do I begin? Let me 6S this and apply some Six Sigma techniques.
Yes, exactly.
So, I started researching, figuring out if there was any comedy going on in Huntsville. Found out about an open mic that was going to be starting up soon.
Was that the Rugby's?
Rugby's was the second one that I found.
Yeah.
I saw about Epic Comedy Hour. It had just started. Like I'd missed the first 2 shows or whatever. And then, I saw, Justin Ludlow. I found his name making posts about it. I contacted him and asked about open mics, and he said he's starting one at like a beer and coffee place at Providence, which is now Moe's Barbecue. Right about the time, about a week before they were going to have their first open mic, they announced they were closing, so that fell through. Then I found out about Rugby's.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when we met. I think we probably met. I don't know if we met at Rugby's. We might have met somewhere else. I don't remember.
I went to Rugby's.
That was a fucking lifetime ago. It feels like so long ago.
I went to Rugby's. I had some jokes ready, but I didn't have the nerve to go up, so I just kind of watched just to see what it would be like, know to expect, next time. So I chit-chatted with the folks that went up, and then found out there was going to be another brand new open mic at Night Moves in Hazel Green. And that was my very first time on stage.
I remember Night Moves.
Yeah.
I remember Night Moves. They had like a $7 steak night or something.
Yeah,
like
it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was
but
just
I don't know
all the way
about
up.
eating a $7 steak in Hazel Green on a Monday.
Yeah,
Seems a little
gamble.
dicey. I said $7 snake. I think I'd rather eat that than the steak.
Yeah.
It might be a better choice. But I remember that. Oh, golly, I remember that place. So your first time was at Night Moves?
It was.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Knowing you now and your brand of comedy, that sounds awful.
My brand of comedy came later. My first time on stage was more...
This is what I want to know. Is like, I didn't know. Brandon is a very... he's our resident kind of one-liner comic here in Huntsville. His jokes are a little cerebral, not in a bad way, but he has some thinkers. But he's also... he's very dry. But he's very funny. And knowing everything that I just said, imagine that in a room full of rednecks just sounds like it's oil and water.
Oh, let's add this to it. So it was a Monday night, and the weekend before was the Daytona 500. It got rained out, so they rescheduled it to resume that same night.
Oh.
And it's a sports bar, so they have
You went on
projector.
during the Daytona 500?
I went on during the Daytona 500 in the Redneck Sports Bar. And while I'm on stage, Juan Pablo Montoya gets into a fiery car crash. So a guy like me, with my kind of energy, competing in a Redneck Sports Bar, while there's an event happening on TV that everybody hopes to watch whenever they're watching NASCAR, there's no competing for attention.
I really want to imagine that it's you on stage and the projector is playing on you while you're doing
That was the opposite
like cars are running across your chest and then just a fiery explosion.
Yeah,
and what a great driver to get into a wreck. Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. So that was your first time.
That was my first time.
So suffice it to say you don't think it went well?
Oh, no. There were only like 5 people near the stage.
Were there any other who else that we know was there that night? Comics?
Jonathan, Tom,
Jonathan
Daniel
Craig, Tom
Coley,
Hand, Daniel Coley,
Thaddeus
Blake,
and maybe one other person.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we're the NHL. It's like the original 6.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So Nightmare. So when was that was almost 8 years ago, right?
February 27th, 2012.
When was the first time that you felt like, oh, I'm funny, like I'm on the right track?
On stage.
How long did it take you?
So like I said, I developed my brand later, my style of comedy. Before all that, I tried doing stuff like rants or sarcastic stuff, making fun of people on Facebook. But,
I know I saw you in the early days, but I literally can't remember any other stylistic.
Okay, good. I suppressed all of the bad.
You went
attempts.
back and burned through all the old stuff. Do you have any of that on tape? Do you have any of that taped?
No, I don't think I have any of that tape, but I do have some Word documents. I typed out word for word every single.
Yeah, I have my third.
That I did on stage.
I've got that too because that's just we talk about this. Brandon has actually assisted in teaching the comedy class. It's basically Jonathan, Brandon, and I all 3 together taught the comedy classes at Stand Up Live. Which, by the way, shameless plug, comedy classes taught by me, Scott Eason, at Stand Up Live. I believe it's the weekend of January 25th 25th and 26th.
Correct.
It's January 25th and 26th. I'm going to try to sweet talk Brandon here into helping me again. So we'll see what he says. Fingers crossed. I don't care if he does it or not. I'm just kidding. No, Brandon's a good teacher. But, oh, man. Yeah, I have my third set ever on DVD. And I don't have the balls to watch it.
Oh yeah, it's just painful. To
I
go
don't
back and
think.
watch those
Yeah,
early
I don't
days.
think I could do it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like watching tape now. Most of the time, it's like it's a nightmare. Especially when you're trying to get a good tape, and you have to you're editing it or you're watching it and you see it a lot. It's like just the sight of your own face and your own voice is just. I despise it.
Like I just want to edit myself out of the video and just have the crowd laughing. Everything in between, me telling jokes. We don't need that.
Yeah. So being a one-liner comic, which to me is I respect a lot because I think with comics you always tend to gravitate towards comedy that you don't do yourself. I think when you have your style and like for instance I'm kind of a storyteller. I do some observational stuff, but most of my stuff is like story based and stuff like that. So it's like one-liners to me are unfathomable because like we've talked about this before. If you were to do like 30 minutes, you might do 60, 70, 80 jokes. And that's just too much for my little brain to handle.
That's a lot of jokes.
Yeah, it's
like
a
my
lot.
set list, people look at it and like, what are you doing, 2 hours? I'm like, no, that's about 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I've talked to, knowing other great one-liners, like there's an excellent one-liner comic out of Denver, Colorado named Zach Reinert, who just recorded his EP, and I think he did like 30 or 35, and there's probably like 80, 100
He comes up
jokes.
with so many jokes that make me jealous. I'm
He
like,
does.
Man,
He's
good.
very funny. But yeah, follow Zach Reinert on Twitter or on Facebook. He is one of the funniest guys on social media today. Vastly underrated. Very, very quick. He's also a little dark too, which I love. He's I don't want to say he's Jesselnicki. He's different, but he is cut from the same cloth a little bit.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
say.
going to hit yourself a little bit for laughing, but you
Yeah.
can't deny it.
Yeah.
It's a funny joke.
So, who's your favorite one-liner comic?
I don't know. Gonna have to go. I was gonna say OG, but I don't know if he's OG or not. Stephen Wright, he's.
I love Stephen Wright too.
I guess you can go further
he's
back
brilliant.
and say there are other, like setup punch type
Well,
guys that
I mean,
were around
it's
before
that-
him, but he's like he's the quintessential.
That's
like
the root of
dry-
all comedy, though. It's like is the setup punch. It's like it didn't really. You didn't get
Right.
into what we consider modern comedy now. I mean, I'm sure people could contest this, but Lenny Bruce and stuff like that. When he kind of got into it, before that, it was definitely like a Buddy Hackett. You know what I mean? Kind of Don Rickles. Hey, that kind of comedy, which is great in and of itself, but it just kind of evolved. Stephen Wright's fantastic. And of course, I think most people that are into comedy, especially in the last couple of decades, would definitely say Hedberg.
Oh yeah.
I think Hedberg now is, far more recognizable than Stephen Wright, which is a shame because Stephen Wright is amazing.
Yeah. Stephen Wright is probably like the quintessential like deadpan one-liner comic. Like he has no energy. Mitch Hedberg is a bit more playful.
Got that heroin energy.
He's a bit more playful.
He's up there
in his
like a
delivery.
rag doll, man. He's loose. He's loose.
And I
But-
think he was probably on Downers his first album and Uppers his other two albums.
Well, knowing, the stories of him, it was probably a well-balanced diet of heroin and speed, like to counteract each other. It's like you get fucked up on the smack, and then you have to have you got to have a little pick-me-up. You know what I mean? You got to have a little pick-me-up. Yeah. Which is funny if you go back and look at especially this is the special that I noticed it the most, but it's also the first special I ever saw as a child was Robin Williams live at the Met. And I think it was 85 or 86, and it was Robin Williams live at the Metropolitan Theater in New York. And he had to do a half a pound of coke before he came on stage.
Wow.
I'm talking like he came out immediately and it was at 1,000 miles an hour. Sweat was shooting off of his fucking forehead like a sprinkler. He had this manic energy, and you're just like, that was back in the day when he was known to do drugs. So I was like, oh yeah, he's fucking
He used his whole arm to
wasted.
line up on the table.
Oh yeah. Like he was on an amazing. Just out there wearing that Robin Williams fur coat, sweating his ass off. Just oof. Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Robin. So your act, I will say, you don't curse a lot, and you're fairly. I don't want to say you're clean, but you're pretty close.
Yeah, it's
that
do some innuendos, not a lot of direct.
Was that a conscious decision, or is it just kind of something you gravitated to?
It's what I gravitated to. I don't deliberately I don't think it's something like, ooh, that's too dirty. I need to change it. But I like to, like you mentioned earlier, my jokes are thinkers. I like to send people down the path and let them get there themselves.
Sure.
And so if I'm too direct, then I kind of defy my own style of comedy.
Mm-hmm. So
I like to do innuendos and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly, I like all different kinds of comedy, but again, I don't do clean a lot. I can do clean. Every comic is different. If you're asked to do one thing or another, trust me, we're all whores. We want money. We want the gig. So we'll figure out a way to do anything. If it needs to be more dirty, that's fine. If it needs to be clean, you'll figure out how to clean it up. But naturally clean comedians, I think, have a little bit of an advantage because they never typically have to rethink anything. It's already framed where they can get away with a lot, which is good, but it's like my mind, I just tend to write however I want to, and then I kind of clean it up afterwards. It doesn't come out clean.
Yeah, I have like 2 jokes that if I need to work clean, I can substitute a word, and the joke still lands pretty well.
Well, that's what we talk about all the time. Is it PG or is it PG-13? Because if it's, or is it church clean? Because honestly, my biggest fear is like church clean. Church clean is extremely difficult for me because if I can't talk about, that takes so many topics off the table. And it's like, of course, a lot of, my stories are not exactly down the straight and narrow. They take a lot of twists and turns. And it's like, cursing is no problem. I can not curse. That's easy. But content for me is the battle. Because if they're like, it's super clean, and you're like, oh, I can't tell a joke about acid. They're like, no drug jokes. You're like, well, fuck, there goes 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Or, oh, can I say boner? They're like, no. You're like,
no sex jokes.
No. Yeah, that's tough. I don't have a lot of, what else is there? I don't even know. Yeah. What else is there to talk about? So, since you've been around for so long, tell me a little bit about how you've seen the trajectory of Huntsville comedy growing, and like, what do you think's in the future for us since Huntsville's kind of booming? And
it's been great to be part of the scene and watching it grow. Like from a ragtag group that's just crashing anywhere there's a mic and an audience, to getting a lot of steady independent shows going every month. There's one almost every weekend now.
Yeah,
and then there's a full-time comedy venue. It's crazy to think where it started.
Yeah,
how fast it got to where it is.
It did seem to once it picked up steam, it did grow rather quickly.
Yeah,
and then like anything else, like it grew, and then we stagnated, and then we grew more, and it seems like it's going through those cycles. But the good thing is, we haven't really shrunk. We haven't had a lot of shrink. We've continued to grow, and now with the population of Huntsville increasing the way it is, damn, man, now it seems like everywhere they're just building. Oh, let's build a new shopping center with entertainment options and condos. It's like that's all they're building in Huntsville now. Yeah. And it's just so much of it. And all I see now being a comedian and a producer is like that's just going to open up so many more doors to do shows at new, interesting venues.
Yeah, the demand is still there. Comedy's a...
Well, that's the whole thing. I think we have to have that balancing act so we don't saturate. You don't want to oversaturate with too much, but find that perfect mixture. And especially when Huntsville continues to grow, it diversifies, and we're going to get a lot of people in, I think, from places, they're going to move here for tech jobs or government jobs or whatever, and they come from cities that had a lot more entertainment options. So I think they're going to be thirsty for things. And now we have a lot of interesting things like Mid-City and things like that. With some. So I'm very hopeful for the future. I'm very hopeful for the future. So if you had some advice for anybody that's watching the show that hasn't done comedy before, what would your top 3 things to tell a new comedian? So we teach the comedy class. Let's give them a free sneak peek. What's your top 3 things that you would tell somebody who wants to try comedy for the first time?
The most common advice you'd be getting from any comic, if you talk to a headliner after a show, they're going to tell you just do it. There's really no substitute for stage time. You can read books. You can watch videos over and over. You can check out all kinds of how-to stuff. But there's no substitute for just, coming up with something you think is funny and getting on stage and trying it. So that's my first piece of advice, just do it.
I agree.
Second piece of advice is, some quality control. Don't confuse being bold with being funny. Like, just because you don't mind getting up there and saying something is going to drop some jaws doesn't mean you're going to be funny. Like, that's the wrong kind of reaction.
Yeah,
usually
new people have a tendency to go for the shock as opposed to the laugh.
I got up, doing jokes about pooping my pants or whatever.
Oh, my first was a 7-minute chunk about bestiality. Everybody knows this. I talk about it all the time.
So,
I've never done it. Here's the thing. I'm going to say it right now on camera. This will be on the internet forever. The first time I ever did stand-up, I don't know if I've told the story on the show, but I'll tell it one day. I bombed really bad because my first joke I ever wrote was a 7-minute bit about bestiality. It's about a woman having sex with a dog at a peep show in New York City. It did not go well. They cut my microphone off. It was not good. But I promised myself, after that I came back, and of course I still do comedy today over 8 years later. I promised myself, if I ever hit it, if I ever get a break, I will tell that joke again. I will, and you know what? It's gonna work. God damn it, it's gonna work this time. Never been said twice. Been said one time over 8 years ago now, and one day it's gonna come out of its cage. There's an animal pun for you. It's about fucking animals. So it's gonna
come out of its crate.
Yeah, exactly. Insert whatever you want to say about animals here. It's coming back. It's coming back. So we said you would just do it.
Yeah, just
2, don't confuse boldness for being funny. And what was number 3?
If you think of anything that makes you laugh, write it down immediately.
Write
and
it
flesh
down.
it out a little bit. Put at least some bullet points, because
Yeah.
I have so many abandoned premises in my phone that I wrote down. It's just 2 words.
You have no
I'm like,
idea.
Crumping Jesus. Well, where was I going to take that?
Well, I've always said
surprise
most comedians' notebooks, if a stranger found them and read them, they'd read like a manifesto and we'd be arrested. You know, it's dangerous stuff. It's very dangerous. All right, Brandon. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up here in Huntsville in the month of January. Right, we have a lot of great stuff coming up in the new year. First off, every first Friday of the month, we have Awesome Comedy Hour, which is at the Open Bottle over on 72. That's a free show, 8 p.m. the first Friday of the month, which is January 3rd. We'll have another fantastic lineup. Come check that show out. A week later, we have Homegrown Comedy, as produced by Mr. Brandon Ijames here on January 10th, and that is at the Speakeasy at Straight to Ale. That is a $5 show, and you will get comedians not only from here local, but you'll also have some great traveling comedians on that show as well, all for $5. You want to check that out at Speakeasy at Straight to Ale on January 10th. The following week, you'll see a pattern here. We have a showcase every Friday. On January 17th, Friday, at Yellowhammer in the tap room, we have Laughs and Drafts, hosted by Megan Eller. That's a great show. You're going to want to check that out.
Lost Highway Cafe.
Lost Highway Cafe,
something
yeah.
like that.
Well, you know what? Go to Yellowhammer and fucking figure it out. Just go to the room that has the comedy in it. How about that? And then, of course, Epic Comedy Hour on the 4th Friday of the month, which is January 24th. So we have a showcase every Friday in the month of January. Couple that with our open mics, which are every Monday at Maggie Meyer's Irish Pub. That starts at 8 p.m. Sign-ups at about 7 or 7:30. Wednesday at 7, sign-ups at 6:30. We have the Casual Pint in Providence. Huge shout-out to Casual Pint being a new partner in Huntsville Comedy. Fantastic place, great beer, great food. Go check that out. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Immediately following that, at about 9:30, sign up at 9, is the open mic at Copper Top, Dive and Dine, which is on the corner of Oakwood and Meridian, and that is our longest running open mic in Huntsville. So you can check that out every Wednesday. So right now we have 3 open mic opportunities, 1 on Monday, 2 on Wednesdays.
Thursday at the airport.
Oh, Thursday at the airport. I thank you for reminding me. Run by Jerry Ogre. We'll just shout out to Ogre. Ogre runs a open mic at the what is that, a Sheraton?
Yeah, that's
the grill.
It's next to Sheridan.
The grill next
right
to Sheridan at the
escalator.
Huntsville Airport. That's every Thursday, so you can check that out. So there's 4 opportunities. I think we're working on another one. At Stand Up Live, probably I think the best show coming up in January will be January 3rd through the 5th, which is Tommy Davidson of In Living Color fame. Very, very funny guy. He's very funny. I've met him before. He's super nice, so check that out at Stand Up Live, January 3rd through the 5th. Also, make sure you're following Shenanigans Comedy Theater. They'll have an entire calendar full of improv, kid-friendly comedy, all kinds of great stuff at Shenanigans Comedy Theater. So make sure that you're visiting them on Facebook, giving their page a like, and also hitting the website. And, of course, keep your eye out for all kinds of comedy special events in January. I want to say thank you to my guest, Brandon Ijames, for joining us here on Front Row. And I want to give a big shout-out, of course, to No Huntsville for allowing me to do this show. Guys, make sure that you are liking and subscribing on everything that No Huntsville is doing on the old interwebs, guys. You can find us out there. Not only do you have us with Front Row, you have 86, which is a fabulous show about food. You have The Come Up, which covers the Huntsville hip-hop scene. You have Alex Tries, which is a great community engagement show. And, of course, you have the main line, the mothership, No Huntsville, which is bringing you all kinds of eclectic different art and culture here in town. And, again, huge thanks for allowing us to talk about Scott comedy here on this wonderful channel. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time, guys. Come out to a show in January. We want to see you.
Thank you.